Murat Çolakoğlu is my name. I am the company partners of PwC. My expertise is energy, which is the subtitle of smart cities. I've been working at the company for 26 years in the field of energy. So we are going to be talking about smart cities, main scientific balances are disturbed by us, and the experts of geology call this area as the era of human beings. They call it Anthropocene, as a human age. There used to be Iron Age, Stone Age in the past. So this is human age. The reason why they call it like this is that the balances of the world are very much disturbed by human beings as a species, and we're getting bigger and bigger in number, and we are having difficulties in meeting our needs in order to increase the social welfare, to eliminate this imbalance, and in order to reduce the poverty level of the city residents, city dwellers, and in order to protect the environment while ensuring the sustainable developments, we are in need of smart cities. And we're here today with our valuable guests who are coming from very long distances, and we're going to exchange opinion. Each of the panelists will have 15 minutes. I will try to respect the time as much as I can. But we need to, of course, benefit from their experiences. We're going to have a Q&A session, and we're kindly asking you to ask as many questions as you can, and I will see them on my screen. I will try to convey your messages to the panelists. First of all, we have Berrin as a NOVUSENS founding partner. So her mind is very much busy with innovation and change. So this is how I can describe her. And may I have your views and experiences? My parents are living in Çanakkale. By the way, I'm so curious about what you do in your project. My mind is in Çanakkale is the title of your project. So thank you very much, Maruf. Last year, we were invited to the Smart Municipal Services Congress last year, and Marmara Municipalities Union has invited us, and we had shared our experiences there last year. In all of our conferences, workshops, seminars, and courses, we definitely make a smart city description, because smart city concept is a very difficult one to understand, despite the fact that the name gives you some sort of an idea. Sometimes it might be wrongly perceived. So let's try to elaborate on what this concept means, and then I will try to elaborate on our experiences. And I'm going to explain what we do together with Faruk Eczacıbaşı. So we've been working together for 7 years in the field of smart cities. So he is trying to be the opinion leader for us. So we're trying to establish this concept in the country and in the international arena to explain how we can convey the sub-elements of this theme onto what we have been doing. Very shortly, I will explain it. With the description of Mr. Faruk Eczacıbaşı, we can say that we need to find a way to make use of our limited resources by making use of IT technologies. We need to find a way to make use of our technologies and resources in a more efficient and effective way, in such a way to make them our facilitators. And how can we concentrate on data? How can we make use of data in an integrated manner? How can we be environmentalist? How can we be human-oriented? What kind of approach should we develop? So the smart city concept itself covers all the answers to these questions. So smart cities are perceived to be technology in general, but technology is a tool for us. They are the facilitating instruments for us, but the main thing is to be human-oriented, which is the theme of the session. We need to find a way to increase our quality of life. So this is what we have been trying to do. We're trying to create human-oriented cities. Of course, we are trying to make use of the technologies in the best way possible. So our common ground is the human beings and human-oriented cities. Very shortly, we have been through different levels of evolution. While conducting this process, we have moved towards the human-oriented approach. Of course, there are various reasons of this transition. Actually, we explain it to the participants of our seminars. We try to explain what this is all about. The city dwellers, the visitors also participate in our sessions to find a solution for the citizen-oriented or human-oriented cities. And we want to transform these cities with this mission in mind. In many of our training sessions, we try to explain the sub-elements of smart cities. We try to look at the Turkish examples and the international examples. We had back then conducted a research in 2016 within the national framework in such a way to cover all the municipalities, power distribution and gas distribution companies. They all had participated in the formulation of our report, which is available on the web. So what we've seen is that in the world and in Turkey, the smart mobility and smart environment are the areas where we are in need of smart city structures. Are they limited with this? No. Of course, we are in need of solutions in every sphere. Due to our theme, we are trying to find a way to increase our living quality. So without smart governance, one cannot find solutions to all these. I think smart governance would be my perspective in my presentation. So speaking of smart governance, I want to mostly emphasize the openness, open data applications, open state, open government, transparency, and participation. So these are the three features where that you need to have for your smart city transformation process. And speaking of smart governance and smart city transformations, one can give great examples. This is one of the best examples. This is from Barcelona. 22 at Barcelona, or 22 at district is their theme, and the smart city transformation took place in the best way possible in this very location. It was a few months ago that we've been there. So it is such a transformation. 200 hectares of industrial zone is included into the smart city vision, which was to be self-sufficient and production of innovative products. Actually, they created the nucleus of all these opinions, so they've been through this transformation. This is one of the most successful urban transformation projects of the world. More than 7,000 companies and entities are located here, and they have hundreds of employees, and they are producing smart city solutions. They have R&D entities, and universities are very much involved, and they're located in this smart city campus, as they call it. They became the very heart of smart city transformation. So let's watch the video together to see what they've done.
Designed to transform this part of the city into a new economic hub, the Innovation District, a privileged area comprising businesses, homes, green areas, and dedicated spaces for culture and knowledge. The 22@ model is one of a compact, diverse city that encourages balanced and sustainable urban and economic development. This well-established model has been exported to other areas of Barcelona and is an international benchmark in terms of urban, economic and social transformation. To accomplish this, there has been a push to create different clusters in various fields of knowledge in which the city can achieve international leadership, so as to once again become drivers of economic growth. Therefore, this area boasts universities, research and development centres, and spaces for technology transfer, with prominent institutions promoting economic and sectoral progress. Organisations that can be found in 22@ include Barcelona Activa, which is responsible for the Barcelona City Council's economic promotion policies and has various incubation spaces available for businesses in the area. 22@ is also the site of the Barcelona Growth Centre, a building that has become the epicentre of the city's economic policy and that houses the Business Support Office. This space offers dialogue, guidance and advice for local and foreign businesses looking to establish themselves in Barcelona. The district also features the Smart City Campus, a base for the ICT industry with cutting-edge infrastructure to attract highly innovative businesses, research centres and universities. The Diagonal Bazos campus is likewise being driven forward to create a space for students and researchers involved in research activities related to the energy sector. A testament to the success of 22@ is the significant number of local and international businesses that have been set up since it was created, generating a large number of new jobs and making it possible to reinvigorate a district that, although still undergoing its transformation, is reclaiming its fame as a national economic driver.
Evet, müsaade ederseniz biz Türkiye...
If you allow me, I would like to give you an example from Turkey. So, for years, we have been working in different cities from different scales. So, we are supporting smart city transformations of the cities from various scales, small, medium, and large scale. So, beginning from the February the 1st, 2017, we have started to support an initiative on smart city transformation in Çanakkale, and the theme of the project is My Mind, Çanakkale on my mind. So what was our target? What kind of roadmap did we assume? What are our priorities? What are our targets? So let me answer these questions with this video and let me give my final messages through this.
Her geçen gün artıyor. Birleşmiş Milletler 2050 yılına kadar dünya nüfusunun %70'inin şehirlerde yaşayacağını öngörüyor. Türkiye'deki eğilim de farklı değil doğrusu. Dünya Bankası 80 milyon nüfuslu ülkemizde kentleşme oranının 10 sene içinde %80'i geçeceğini tahmin ediyor. Çanakkale'de tıpkı Türkiye'nin geri kalanı gibi çarpıcı bir değişimin eşliğinde. Dahası yakın gelecekte tamamlanacak Çanakkale 1915 köprüsünün şehrin dönüşümünü hızlandıracağı ve gerçek bir cazibe merkezi haline geleceği aşikar. Hal böyle olunca tarihi, kültürel ve doğal mirası eşsiz olan Çanakkale için akıllı büyümeyi gündeme almak, dönüşümü ortak akılla yönetmek ve akıllı şehir olmaya doğru bir yolculuğa çıkmak kaçınılmaz hale geliyor. Peki ama akıllı şehir neyi ifade ediyor? Sınırlı kaynakları daha verimli kullanmak üzere bilgi ve iletişim teknolojilerine yatırım yaparak yalnızca tasarruf etmeyi değil, hizmet ve yaşam kalitesini yükseltmeyi başarabilen, çevreye ve doğal kaynaklara saygıyı esas alarak doğada bıraktığı karbon ayak izini azaltan ve tüm bunları yenilikçi ve sürdürülebilir yöntemlerle yapan şehirler akıllı şehir olarak tanımlanıyor. Akıl fikri Çanakkale projesi ise Çanakkale'nin yalnızca teknolojik olarak değil, daha yaşanabilir ve sürdürülebilir olması amacıyla çıkılan akıllı şehre dönüşüm yolculuğunu hızlandırmayı, bu yolculukta ihtiyaç duyacağı yol haritasını da yerel paydaşların katılımıyla ortaya koymayı hedefliyor. Çanakkale'nin rekabet gücünü ulusal ve küresel ölçekte yükseltmek amacıyla atılan bu adımların ardında Kale Grubu, Türkiye Bilişim Vakfı ve NOVUSENS Akıllı Şehirler Enstitüsü yer alıyor. Proje 5 aşamadan oluşuyor. İhtiyaç ve sorunların belirlendiği anlama safhası, akıllı şehir bakış açısının saptandığı vizyon safhası, odak alanlarının tanımlandığı strateji safhası, program ve projelerin önceliklendirildiği eylem planı safhası, performans ölçütlerinin tamamlandığı uygulama ve izleme safhası. Tüm bu aşamaların başarıyla tamamlanıp akıllı şehir dönüşümünün sağlanabilmesi için başta yerel yönetim olmak üzere kamu, özel sektör, üniversite, vatandaş ve sivil toplum işbirliği büyük önem taşıyor. Gerçekleştirilen çalışmalar sonucunda akıllı çevre, akıllı ulaşım, akıllı yaşam, akıllı yönetişim, akıllı ekonomi ve akıllı toplum Çanakkale için öncelikli alanlar olarak sıralanıyor. Söz konusu önceliklerin ışığında hayata geçirilen akıllı şehir uygulamalarına her gün bir yenisi ekleniyor. Görülen o ki aklın yolu bir oluyor, Çanakkale'de buluşuyor.
Evet,
Right. In order to increase our life quality, we are in need of smart cities, but by definition, our mission and our target is to increase our living quality. But while doing that, we need to make use of the technology in a facilitating way. What we attach importance to is that I will very shortly touch upon these elements and conclude my remarks. Visionary leadership is number one thing that you are in need of. Actually, in all transformation and change project, you need to have a visionary leader. If I am to give an example from our Çanakkale project, our Kale group was born in Çanakkale territory. As Ms. Zeynep puts it, it is Çanakkale is the land where we were born and where we're fed, and she constantly invests in Çanakkale city. And smart city is a kind of corporate responsibility project, and Mr. Faruk has always been helpful to us. Actually, in for Eczacıbaşı and for Kale Group, they've been competing against each other for long, long years, but they have come together. And the stakeholders of the city have collaborated with each other. The public and private enterprises and the NGOs have come together to have a smart city vision for this city of Çanakkale. Participation is another issue that we pay attention to. We were lucky, by the way, because the city itself has always paid attention to inclusion and participation, and this is what we were supposed to do as according to our mission, excuse me. So these are the things that we want to emphasize. Hopefully we will be able to realize this transformation for the other cities so that we would be able to have livable and sustainable cities. Thank you.
Ben zamanı hızlı kullanmak
In order to use time efficiently, I won't be summarizing our speakers and I will jump to Nathan Pierce. He will be speaking in English, so if you need, please get your headsets while I'm introducing him. He is the president of Smart London. He comes from London, Sharing Cities Initiative Program Director. That's why, starting with London, 6 cities are included in this program, and there's quite a lot of experience.
What I noted about you was actually, I noted down that you're determined to improve the lives of regular people by finding innovative ways to make government more sustainable, efficient, and citizen-focused. I have heard this word actually from Berrin as well, like focusing on citizens. I think that's the important part, and you're underlining that in your notes as well, and in your talks as I watched. Could you please share your experience with us?
Not a problem at all. Thank you very much for the introduction. There, can you hear me? Perfect. Thank you very much. As you said, I am the head of the Smart London team at the Greater London Authority and then Programme Director of Sharing Cities. So what was the question was about citizen focus, or do you want me to start a presentation? So a big part of where London's vision of smart city, I saw that you made a couple of definitions of what you think a smart city is. We've been on a bit of a journey in London over the last few years, shifting from, and you'll see this in my presentation in a minute, looking at big data and legacy systems and using them to make the city smarter, and moving more towards user-centered design and putting the citizen at the center of services that we develop. That's very much something that we're keen to do, and that's very much something that the Mayor of London is keen to do, not just in terms of smart cities, but across all of the services that we deliver. Have you got the slide thing? Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me here today. I've got quite a lot to get through, so I'll try to move as quickly as possible. My presentation here now is in 2 parts. The first part is around what we're doing in London in terms of being a smart city and our Smarter London Together roadmap, which is our strategy for making London into a smart city. And then, as you say, I'll talk to you a bit about the Sharing Cities project, which is a European Union funded project which we lead on in London. And it may be the last European Union project we lead on, but for now we are still part of that wonderful project. London is big. When I give this presentation in European cities, I often am able to say that we are the largest city in Europe, but I'm very much aware that we're not as big as Istanbul, so I'm not going to say that to you guys today. But in terms of European cities, we're about 9 million. The next biggest European city is Berlin, around 3.6 million. So in terms of the European area, we're certainly the only mega city, and our population is growing. So the population of London fell off a little bit after the Second World War, but we've now got back to the levels of pre-war, and we are growing. So even by fairly moderate estimates, we're going to grow by around about 2 million over the next 2 years. And that's quite substantial. This kind of population growth, it provides big challenges for urban planners, challenges in terms of jobs, waste, amenities, digital connectivity is a big one. Now, keeping pace with the current demand of where our population is hard enough as it is, but keeping in pace with this demand of a growing population as well presents some real problems. And this is where smart city technology and smart city approach can really help. Another challenge that we have in London, this may be similar for other cities, but it's definitely a challenge for us, is that we're quite fragmented. So London is actually made up of 33 municipalities, each with their own set of politicians and bureaucracies. We also have nearly 20 NHS, so our health service trusts. We have 50 universities, 50 universities, a number that always surprises me. And of those universities, 5 are in the top 20 in the world. So we're very proud of our academic nature as well. And then we have Pan-London Fire Brigade, Pan-London Ambulance Service, and Pan-London Transport Service called Transport for London. So there's a lot of different public sector agencies that make up this city, which on one hand can be a good thing, but on the other hand can be a real challenge when you're trying to get things done. But apart from these challenges, London is full of lots of opportunity. London is the world's leading finance sector. We may debate that position with New York now and then, but as a representative of London, I'm saying that we are the leading financial sector. And we know that we're the #1 destination for international investment. We've got a really large growing cultural sector. We're a magnet for talent from around the world. We're very supportive of startups. And London is very much the engine of UK economic growth. And in terms of digital technology, I know this isn't specifically smart cities, but it gives you an idea. We've got around about 9 billion investment going into smart and digital technology in London at this point in time. In fact, this infographic you see is already a couple of years old, and it is much more than that. We've also got a very big developer community in London. I think this is something that for a city, it's really important as you move into future years to foster and develop. So we have nearly 250,000 people, nearly 250,000 people who have some form of qualification in terms of software development or being a developer. And I think this is a really important asset for us moving into the next period of being a smart city. Despite all of this, London still isn't really a smart city, and there are no cities really that are fully smart. So why aren't cities smarter by now? We've been talking about smart cities for nearly 10 years now, and I think the key thing for us is smart city isn't an end state. You don't get to a point where you can suddenly turn around and say, we are now a smart city. There is no final destination. It's a journey. It's something you have to constantly keep working on. The term smart city will probably fall out of fashion soon. We'll call it something else. But it's really about making sure that you're a city that's connected, integrated, and, as you said earlier, Murat, puts the citizen at the centre of what you do. One of the challenges we also have in London, and I feel you have it in other cities as well, is there's a lack of understanding and leadership on what technology can actually do in the public sector. Often in the public sector it's seen as a bit of a side project. Someone does smart cities or digital technology over there, whereas really it should be mainstreamed into the way a city runs and the way a city operates. And this is a challenge for us in London, definitely. It's not about uniformity. I think a while ago, around 5, maybe 10 years ago, there was talk about purchasing a data platform that would control everything in your city, and it would be wonderful, and you could do big data. Well, actually, the reality is a smart city is a complex system of multiple platforms that need to interact. So it's not necessarily about a uniform approach, but it's about being consistent, having the right standards in place, having the right similar kind of methods of collecting data, and so on. And it's not just about gadgets and systems, it's about putting people first. So into this area, we developed the Smart London team. That picture you see there isn't actually a picture of us in the Smart London team, but there does just happen to be 5 of us. 3 of the things that we do as Smart London team in London is provide leadership, market shaping and collaboration, and particularly in terms of encouraging collaboration across all of those public sector entities that make up the City of London. And I think I mentioned this earlier. On this slide here, you can see our old definition of what a smart city is as London on the left, and that was very much about systems and integrating systems. And on the right is what our current definition of smart cities is, which is much more about collaboration, connecting, and being responsive to the needs of our citizens. And this is enshrined in our Smarter London Together roadmap, which is the new strategy developed by our Chief Digital Officer, Theo Blackwell.
Modern technology gives us an enormous opportunity to bring people together, building a more sustainable future and improving the quality of life for our citizens. We're also working with other cities around the world who tackle a host of common challenges, from traffic congestion and air pollution to digital connectivity and economic inequality.
London's size means that we aren't just one smart city, but many. In the past, fragmentation meant that we often didn't see the benefits of scale for our citizens. Our approach takes the principles of digital transformation and champions them from City Hall across 32 London boroughs, public agencies, and over 50 NHS trusts. Our Smart London Together roadmap has 5 missions and 20 initiatives, both large and small. The first mission is about the smartest technology that we have, our citizens. We're introducing user-designed digital services and civic innovation challenges to solve some of London's inequality, climate change, travel and energy. The second mission is to strike a new deal with city data by introducing new data sharing arrangements and exploring new models of assurance. The third mission is to have broadcast connectivity in smart streets. We want to mobilise public access, coordinated investment and trial new smart technology in public spaces. The fourth mission is to get digital skills in the hands of all Londoners, so as to train better digital leaders at all levels of public services. The final mission is about collaboration and working together more effectively. We want to bring all agencies together to build once and share offerings, promoting consistency and quality of services. Finally, we work on our online report card, being citizens to see our progress, checking if we change our operation, understanding our system.
Together, let's show the London to new ideas and technological innovation.
So there you heard from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, and our Chief Digital Officer, Theo Blackwell. And what Theo mentioned at the end there was our report card. And this is a Trello board that we have online. If you Google Smarter London Together roadmap, there's a big link to it on the page that comes up. And this is about working in the open. So on this Trello board, we share all of the actions that we're working on to make London a smart city, a smarter city, and our progress on that, and also ways that people can get involved in these actions with us. So some of the highlights that we're working on there, we just established London Office of Technology and Innovation. We have developed recently our cybersecurity strategy. We're doing a lot around smart infrastructure. We're doing a lot as well about the ethics behind data sharing and using artificial intelligence on public sector data. I think this is a really important area for cities to consider over the coming years, especially when cities become custodians of people's data, obviously 5G rollout as well. And the London Data Store is currently going through a revamp, 3.0. It's now 10 years old this year. And we're looking at trying to make our open data platform fit for the next 10 years as well. Now, we mentioned earlier, I'm going to very quickly whiz through one of the largest projects. So of all of those 20, there's more than 20 now, of all the 20 actions in our roadmap, one of them is to deliver the Sharing Cities project. The Sharing Cities project is Horizon 2020 funded programme where London is the lead city with Lisbon and Milan, who are known as lighthouse cities, and then also our fellow cities of Burgas in Bulgaria, Bordeaux in France, and Warsaw in Poland. And together we're testing 10 types of smart technology in each of the 3 lighthouse cities, and then looking how we can replicate them in our fellow cities. And the underlying aim of this project is to use 24 million investment from the European Commission to try and trigger 500 million in investment across Europe in these types of technologies. It's a 5-year program. We're now coming towards the end of the 4th year, and we've had some really, really incredible results. Most of the technology has now been implemented. We've got the business cases and business models in, and we're very happy with the performance. Now, I don't have enough time to go through all of the 10 types of technology, but I'll just whiz through a couple of the areas that we've been working on. So one of the areas is retrofitting buildings. We retrofitted Lisbon's City Hall, a historically important building, where we have managed, through the use of smart technology and digital infrastructure, to reduce the energy use of that building by 60%. We've also done this across a number of other public sector buildings as well. And in total, we've managed to retrofit up to homes that affect up to 15,000 people. And on average, we're seeing energy reductions of around about 50%. We've tested a whole range of different digital engagement mechanisms, ways that you can incentivize people to use more green and sustainable transport and green and sustainable methods of heating their homes. And this has been hugely popular, particularly in Milan, where we've released what's called the digital social market. We've tested a whole range of different smart mobility solutions, from a citywide e-bike scheme. If any of you ever go to Lisbon now, over the next few years, you'll see hundreds of electric bikes docked on stations. That was something that we're very proud to have introduced. And in a very hilly city like Lisbon, it's actually proven to be very popular. And we've really tested out a number of different use cases for mobility as a service. And in nearly all instances, it's shown to be very successful, very popular, and the business model stacks up. We've tested over 500 smart lampposts. My poor wife has to put up with me talking about lampposts all the time. This is one of the areas of smart technology that we've invested in the most. And in London, actually, separate to this, we've tested over 2,000 smart lampposts there as well. And we tested all types of sensors, electric charging points, smart parking, anything you can do with a lamppost that isn't lighting. And then the glue that brings this all together is the data platform. So in Lisbon and Milan, we developed 2 data platforms from scratch. And in London, we upgraded the London data store to be able to start to accept live data and live information so that you can start to do big data analytics more effectively. It's part of a wider program. Sharing Cities is one of 14 projects which are part of a £500 million investment program by Horizon 2020, so we can have a genuine impact on the marketplace. And one of the key things that we're doing in order to have this impact is package up our learning from the Sharing Cities program in such a way that any city can take what we have learned and replicate it in their own way. So this is bringing together all the information around procurement, business models, technical specifications, standards, everything that a city official would need to replicate and copy what it is that we've done successfully. So I've come to the end of my time now. I'll just leave this up here. I won't read through this. Some of the things that we think the future holds in terms of the next steps of Smart City. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathan, for this extensive sharing with us. I have a question for you, but I keep it until the end. So I'd like to pass on to our second speaker. Thanks for her. She came over Netherlands. And she was actually the Landsmeer mayor up until a month ago. And she kindly accepted the invitation and came here to share with us what they performed in their region for the sake of being a smart city. Please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Maruf on the organization of this conference because it's very impressive. It's my first conference here, but it's very impressive what's being presented. It's very good that you stressed that we work in a region. The Amsterdam region has to work together with all the trouble it gives the small cities, whereas Landsmeer was a village of 11,000 people, almost 1 million in Amsterdam. There's always this fight between the small ones and the big ones. The small ones feel like Amsterdam is running too fast, and Amsterdam gets fed up with the story that they run too fast, so they do it on their own. That's another issue then. And now in this project is an example of the other way around. The alderman of Amsterdam that's involved with this issue most of all is mostly concerned about the importance and admission for people to join in this digital world, and at the same time stress the resilience in the digital world. How can it work that we use technology not only to make people live longer, but also live more healthy than used to be in the past? How can we keep traffic alive in the sense that it is a healthy traffic and it doesn't prevent people from meeting each other? So that the idea, well, let's have a healthy traffic, means that nobody leave their house and go to theater and the bar and whatever, because they don't do it in the proper way. So how can you combine a social effect, stimulate social effect, and technology? And then there's it's typical Dutch, it has to have a moral. Digital awareness also for elderly people, that they can join in society and that they're not the victim of crime, which happens quite a few times. And for girls being aware of lover boys and sexting issues, because that's also the digital world, and it will follow you forever in your life whenever you got involved one time or the other. But there's this organization of which I'm not a member, but they asked me to introduce it up here. That's Amsterdam Smart City. It works together with money from the government, from the province, from private companies and other people involved, and they make their own plans of what they will stress to do. And they're very much aware that switching to renewables will not be as rapid as many may hope, but that you still have to do it. And you may have a disadvantage at some time, but it doesn't, it shouldn't be the reason to stop what you were doing. Let's see if it... This one? No? No? Ah, there it is. I have to press a bit harder. It's an independent innovation platform. Although it gets money from private companies and government, they make their own plans, and they work on public authority to take over their plans. Amsterdam Smart City has four main issues: energy, mobility, digital city, and circular economy. And especially what binds it all together is that we are in a big issue involved, that we are about to leave using gas for warming the house or cooking, so we have to have other means of producing warmth and making meals. And in that sense, these four issues play a role together. Here you see the core values. What's very important in this issue is that you introduce and keep working on involving the citizens with their knowledge of the neighborhood, with their knowledge of the city, with their interests in, now, how can I move around in the city without pollute the area? As electronic biking is coming up also in the Netherlands, why do we plan traffic roads for cars instead of electronic biking? Try to leave the problem of today and look forward. Where do we want to be in 2030, 2035 and further on? And that's where you need citizens as well. Don't be afraid that you may make a mistake, because it helps you not to make it again and get the project further. Here's an idea of left down are the governments, bottom up are associations, NGOs from all sorts that work together with private companies like the Mail, like Arena is the football stadium, Alliander is the deliverance of gas pipes. So it's for them, it's very interesting what's going to happen the coming years, and the knowledge institutions of Amsterdam and the region. Working together is trying to get the other interested in your project, and try to interest each other in how can we make the best of what we want to achieve. Here are a few projects. Upcycle Center is only starting. How can you use used materials into something new? No. Energy, I mentioned the stadium. Energy from the stadium, can we use it by solar panels? And what can we do in the neighborhood, as there are a few more? Ziggo Dome is entertainment business. AFAS Live is an entertainment business. This uses a lot of energy. How can we use it from the stadium? And then here, how an independent platform for advice and development of solar panels. If private, it's very easy decided by politicians, and I'm one myself, to say everybody should work with solar panels, but it costs them an awful lot of money. How can we think of issues that we help people using the solar panels and at the same time stay boss in their own wallet? Community platform is connecting people on projects, get the knowledge outside of the developers room, and I fully agree that you need a society of developers to push up things and get things started and further than sometimes politicians go. No, I'm not a wonder with this thing. Amsterdam City, Sustainable City Partners are different, and they now, this is called Dutch skies. In how much does data influence our life, or do we influence data? And the project is not called data, but is called TADA, the other way around of data. And how can we use data and not let them steer us? Well, the former that went very quickly, that was the annual meeting of the region with all issues that are active in the region. On this issue, on circular, we have at the moment, for instance, a waste problem, as the company is about to go down. Yeah, that's nice, but that's 2 million people all around. Where do you leave your waste? So that is an issue. That's why we have to work together. And the cooperation varies in coalitions. As long as people are involved for that project, it's great. And if they want to swap to another project, then it's useful again. No, I don't know what's going on, but I know from my presentation in here that it was the end.
Perfect. And thanks for saving some time for us for the Q&A as well. So thank you very much, and once more for sharing your views, because you're a politician and might be, your views might be different than ours. But I really appreciate your sharings. And sorry for our speakers, I will be switching to Turkish, so if you could just put on your earphones. Mehmed Ali Bey ile ilgili...
About Mr. Mehmed Ali, I would like to say something. But by the way, Anne mentioned about the stadium, and last month we had a meeting, and I cannot remember the name, but it would be Van Schuck, a football player, a stadium named after him. And the stadium is really nice. There is solar energy usage, and a game of 90 minutes from the beginning till the evacuation till the end. The electricity needed is generated by the solar energy. So it is the usage of renewable energy, and that's something great and quite inspiring. And also the stadium management said that they can also support the surrounding neighborhood in terms of electricity generation, and their electricity generation is connected with the grid of the city, and then they can also serve for citizens, for the neighborhood. As Anne told us at the beginning, regional solutions can be quite efficient and sustainable. That was a great project. So now Mehmed Ali, while I searched for Mehmed Ali online and on YouTube, I found an interview. So I won't go into the details of this. Tekhnelogos. Techne means art, logos means smartness. So Mehmed Ali is the founder of Tekhnelogos, of this company. He studied philosophy at the university, and with smart solutions, well, he has a PhD study in philosophy and smart solutions. So the floor is yours, Mehmed Ali. Thank you very much. I will be talking about smart cities and smart buildings. And there's a new methodology, building information modeling. I will be talking about this. Well, yes, this pointer is not working. So on this slide, I would like to inform you about the philosophy, because I studied philosophy. Human beings found themselves as aliens on this earth compared to other animals. Well, our natural habitat is not the nature. Well, of course, we love nature, but the nature, in terms of philosophy, the nature is a challenge to human beings. Why? There are two reasons. One, when we look at our body compared to other animals, we cannot adapt to the nature. We are weak. And second of all, mentally speaking, we are aliens to the nature. Look at, for example, monkeys. In our brain, we have thousands of images, and we cannot find an equivalent for them in the nature. That's why we create a world outside, and there are cities in that world. Cities have always been smart. Cities are the brain of us, when we left the caves and when we started to establish villages and cities, we started to migrate to our brain. For example, when we look at Diyarbakır, compared to 1,000 years old, well, Diyarbakır was smarter in the past, or Istanbul was smarter 1,000 years ago compared to today. So people are trying to reflect the images in his mind, in her mind, to the outer world, to the cities. And now we have different modern tools, but in the past, cities were smarter. I'm sorry to say this, but today we have seen that we shouldn't damage our cities, and we try to create better habitats. In previous speeches, we have seen this. The most important part of smart cities is information and knowledge, and cities become smart thanks to the knowledge, thanks to the information. And buildings are the pillars of cities. That's why in this session I would like to talk about buildings, because they are the most important part of cities. Building information modeling, a new modeling in our lives. Can we go back, please? Well, like smart cities, we will be seeing this building information modeling more and more in the future. Building information modeling is seeing the building as an information cluster, and all processes are turned into data processing. So for buildings, we have now a building information modeling, and of course this will change. This modeling will change in the future. So I will skip that slide, but the BIM, Building Information Modeling design, is different compared to computer-aided design, because in a CAD you only have drawings and only an expert can understand those lines. But in building information modeling, you see the bricks, the toilet, and also the floor, etc. So the architectural plan is transferred into the digital world like it is in the mind of the architecture. So you don't see only a data storage, but also an understanding of the plan. That's why there is a physical building, and in the computer world there is one-to-one reflection from bricks to door handle. All physical items are in the digital world as well. So building production is managed with artificial intelligence. So what sort of a feature can we expect? In the world of BIM, Building Information Modeling, of course there are architects. Computers cannot serve as architects, but the design is represented in the computer, and thanks to this, the implementation, the building, the construction of the building is shared with all stakeholders in the digital world simultaneously. And the data structure of BIM is like the contractor of the building. That's why in the smart city after feature, in their buildings, we see the whole control of city authorities and also artificial intelligence based platforms. So it will be distributed to other stakeholders, so there will be no need for contractors, and without human beings this will be possible. And in the future we are talking about artificial intelligence depending on demographics, education, mobility, changing behaviors, etc. Depending on the global data, the artificial intelligence will be planning new buildings, and architecture will be all about creating concepts. So smart cities will be transforming and changing, growing or shrinking organically together with its own artificial intelligence. So in the future, the BIM paradigm will be there from A to Z. You will be able to manage buildings thanks to this new methodology. So it is important not only for the future of the smart city, but today as well. Together with the BIM paradigm, local governments should be managing the buildings. This will be safer, and the future will be safer thanks to this. We have this product. For BIM, we have developed ZetaCAD, and I would like to introduce this to you. ZetaCAD is a tool in order to position the natural gas installation for buildings. This is a BIM practice. This is different than CAD. There's CAD in its name, but Depending on the architectural plan, the whole plan is identified and installation is identified and calculation is done automatically by the artificial intelligence. And again, artificial intelligence controls all details, all technical requirements. Since 2005 in Turkey, in different provinces, this is used. So in our system we have more than 6 million projects, which means more than 9 million buildings. And in those 9 million buildings we have all sorts of data in the digital world. Among projects we have architecture, installation, equipments or chimneys, windows, heating, cooling, all sort of information is kept within BIM, building information modeling, and that information is open to all stakeholders. Thank you for your attention. We will switch back to English because we have Tim.
Tim, Space Syntax isimli şirketin genel müdürü kendisi. İngiltere'den geliyor. What I noted about you and disseminating a unique science-based and human-focused approach to their planning, design and operation. So that's what your vision is about your company. And I really like, by the way, I always liked to be an architect. I couldn't, but that's why I love architects.
You look young enough that there's still time.
No, I wish I could have time, but no. And I like the word in your talks, placemaking. Could you share with us?
Sure, thank you very much. I'd like to offer some thoughts on and some experiences about the process of creating a smart strategy. And at the heart of this challenge is, I think, a really important question, which is how can technology help people live better lives? And this means we don't just need to understand the technology, we need to understand people's lives. The Danish architect Jan Gehl says we know more about the life of the mountain gorilla than we do about the lives of the human species. And so in this talk, I'd like to introduce some technology that we've developed, which is focused on understanding how people behave in cities, so that we can then design buildings and cities which work for people and which we can call smart because they make the lives of people better. So in my experience, there are three fundamental activities in creating a smart strategy. We've heard some of them already. The first is capable and inclusive leadership. That is political leadership at the highest level, and it's also community leadership at the local level. The second component is long-term finance, not just short-term money to build, sell, and move, but long-term money to invest in places. And then the third, and this is the one that I want to focus on, is to have an engaging and a realistic vision, physical and spatial vision for what the future can look like. And this is, as an architect and as an urban planner, my day job. How can the city look in the future? Now, we have a challenge. The first, and I think the fundamental smart city challenge, is that across the world, fast highways have replaced main streets. On the city on the left, a highway divides global activity from local activity. It separates people moving large distances from people moving short distances, people moving quickly from people moving slowly. The city on the right, the historic city of Paris, the Champs-Élysées, carries the same volume of traffic as the modern road on the left. Yet, the Champs-Élysées generates great social culture, great economic wealth, and great memories that help the lives of people. Property values are highest on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. Property values are lowest on the street on the left. If we keep building highways through our cities, we are diminishing the life, the economy, and the society in which we exist. Let's look at that physically as a map. On the left is the fragmented city of disconnected developments, the city of highways, where development is parceled into small lots. Shopping moves into shopping centers. People live in housing estates. And on the right is the integrated city of continuously connected neighborhoods. As Ali said, cities used to be smart. Historic cities were smart because the shops were on the streets that connected everything together. The street is the glue that connects the city and makes the city work. What does that look like? Here is a smart street. Not smart for any single technology, but smart for the people that can visit, can live, can work, can meet, can innovate, can form relationships, can trade, can do all of these things. They can walk, they can cycle, and if you look very closely, they can drive. This is a smart technology. The technology is the street. And great cities are built around streets. The great city of Istanbul is a city of historic streets. Now, how can we be more scientific about this? Well, for the last 50 years, my research organization and many around the world, from London and across the world, my company, Space Syntax, has been developing technology to measure the connectivity of streets and to predict the likelihood that people will wish to walk or cycle as well as drive on those streets. The hot red streets are the more walkable streets. We can use science to get close to this emotional and passionate wish that we want to live in places that are safe, in places that are convivial, where society flourishes. And I'll show you how we use this in design practice to create master plans, visions for the future, built around streets, built around public spaces, around parks, shaded by trees, using water to attract people, but on which the street is the key element, where people live near where they can work, where public transport works because the density is high enough, and where the economy flourishes because people want to invest in this sort of place. My clients want to build these places because they make more money. Now, what we've learned about spatial accessibility, this computer algorithm that measures the connectivity of streets, is that it is a very simple technique to predict pedestrian movement and predict vehicle movement and predict cycle movement. When we observe the levels of movement on streets, we stand there and we count, we use cameras and we count, and then we correlate those counts with the computer algorithm that measures connectivity, we find scientific correlations. This is a major scientific discovery that shows we can understand how the city works. And if we understand movement, we can understand land use, where the shops go, where retail works. 80% of London's streets are on the most connected, the most accessible streets. 80% of London's shops. Shops go to where the movement is. Movement goes to where the connectivity is. If we want the shops to work, They need to be on streets that connect local people with global movement. Criminals understand space. Many town planners and architects don't understand space, but criminals understand space. The white dots are places where criminals have broken into the houses of people. They break into houses where the movement is lowest, where there are fewest people on the street, to interrupt them and alert the police. And when we look at the underlying land values, we find correlations between spatial accessibility and land value. The more connected streets generate more land value because they are the streets that encourage people to walk and to cycle and to meet each other and to be convenient for driving. If we compare, as we are here, two master plans for the same development site, the master plan on the left has streets which do not connect. You can see they are blue because you try to walk across the master plan, and you keep having to switch back to change direction. In the master plan on the right, the streets connect. They flow in the form of a historic grid. Easier to walk, more people create more footfall, land values increase. The value difference we estimate as $470 million US dollars as the difference between one architect's master plan and another in terms of the lifetime value of this development. The more we look at spatial accessibility, the more we discover that, for example, the reliance, the dependence on cars and the social isolation that can be created if you don't have a car are predictable by spatial accessibility. And the cost of treating people with mental health problems of loneliness, is huge. We are treating people medically with drugs because of the problems that urban planners have created through a lack of connectivity. So as an architect, I can use these techniques as a design tool, and I can use a computer model to take a site and to test a new design within that site. Will these new black streets connect? Will people flow down them? Will they generate social life? Will the shops work? I can run the algorithm. It runs so quickly that I can sketch and it can give me feedback in real time. These streets don't work. They're blue, they're cold, they're quiet. I need streets that connect. So let's try a different design. A design that is generated by extending streets from the surrounding area, because local places depend on global connections. Run the algorithm again, we can generate high levels of connectivity. So in practice, as an architect, I have a tool. As an urban planner, I have a tool which gives me immediate feedback as to whether my plan is going to work to deliver the objectives of the brief that has been given to me. And this in practice is how we redesigned Trafalgar Square in central London, the principal public space in London, working with the architect Norman Foster and partners, creating a staircase in which life thrives. That staircase was built through a process of sensing, mapping, analyzing, then reacting and testing our designs. Sense, map, analyze, react, test is the SMART process. Sense, map, analyze, react, test is what I remember as an architect is how to be smart in the process of design. We're working in China and throughout the world on cities that are growing very rapidly, where we can make plans to make sure we're creating local community, not just fast highways, where we're creating retail streets, not just shopping centers, where we're trying to bring the smartness of the historic city into the future city. We're master planning with the city of Nur Sultan, the capital city of Kazakhstan, a city that will be based around streets and parks and public spaces, around the ability to walk as well as to drive. And behind all of this, working with property investors to make sure that we are generating the values that they require in order to fulfill the very important economic needs of cities. So, in summary, let me just describe a smart city process from my perspective as an architect. It has the first dimension of space. Space is fundamental at the macro, the meso, and the micro levels, analyzing space in the way that I've shown you. But the second, and that relies on integrated urban modeling. Integrated urban modeling is the future of the process of urban planning. It's like BIM for cities. It's taking all the data and bringing it together through spatial layout analysis so that we understand movement and crime and air pollution and health. Spatial layout analysis helps us tell the story of how the city works. The second dimension to the smart city planning process is time. To use these tools in policy making, in planning, in operations, in construction and in operations, so that we can seamlessly use these tools across professionals at different stages of the process and working with local communities who understand their place better than any professional. These mapping techniques, in my experience, work extremely well with local communities so that they can place their own data within them. And then the third and final dimension is data. Data we can organize about data on people, data on urban form and infrastructure, the physical stuff, the pipe work, the buildings, but also data on resources, on the availability of energy, the availability of money, the availability of water, of gas, and finally on the environment, the sun, the wind, the rainfall, the quality of soil. And place those three dimensions together, we have a diagram of the smart city from the perspective of planning. So that's it, the smart city. We need smart technologies, we need smart methodologies, but we need to gear them towards those smart outcomes, of which the greatest and smartest of outcomes is the street that works to make the lives of people better. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Tim, for what you shared with us. So I would quickly like to pass on to the Q&A session, if you don't mind. And I believe you have the, şeyler galiba sizin...
I think you have an application in your mobile phones. Through the application, you can ask your questions. I didn't receive any questions through the application, but if you have online questions, I will be able to see them here, and I will be able to pose those questions on behalf of you to our speakers. Since we have not received any questions yet, let me ask the first question. So the first question goes to, is there a reason for not receiving those questions? Well, Berrin. So, Çanakkale project, smart city project of Çanakkale is very important, but we are in Istanbul, so can Istanbul become a smart city? It's a tough question. Because Istanbul is a mega city, a huge scale city, as you all know. But 2.5, 3 years ago, a smart city transformation program was started. So we can follow those questions first if you wish. Now you can go on. So it is not something easy to do, not easy for Çanakkale, not easy for mega cities like Istanbul. But like in the Çanakkale project, a transformation process had started together with 5 phases, 5 stages. And there was a similar transformation methodology. I say it is not easy to implement because there are some burning needs, burning demands, and on the other hand, you have to manage this long term transformation process. We know that people will continue to exert efforts. In the literature, there are some projects which are quick wins. With little resources, you can give a rapid, swift answer to the need of cities. So in all transformation plans, we also start and conduct quick win projects. And in the ideal scenario, they go in parallel to one another. For Istanbul, there are lots of quick win projects. There are different smart city examples, but in terms of scale, Istanbul is huge, and it is difficult to transform this city. And about the smart city transformation, in my presentation, I forgot to say, this is a journey. This is not a project. For projects, you have an initial phase and then a finalization phase. But it is a journey when you speak about a transformation. So your will, your commitment is important when it comes to journeys. So here I see a question, but now we can see it in the screen as well. Nathan.
But ben bunu işaretlememiştim. Neyse, sorulmuş oldu, artık cevap verelim. So they say very recently we have now electric scooters called Martı in the streets of Istanbul. Here it is asked, it's not by the municipality, but by a private entity through an app, through our mobiles. And they say, what do you think about privatization for the sake of development of a city?
In terms of the new, not just scooters, but
yeah,
bikes
it's just
as
an
well.
example that this has been taken as an example. We have electric scooters, but it's not by the municipality. It's not run by a municipality, but by a private entity.
Yeah.
So, do you believe in privatization for development?
Well, I think it's very good to have a really mixed market. One of the things that we're trying to do through the Sharing Cities program is grow the market in general. I think when it comes to transportation, what we're seeing more and more is the more successful transportation systems in a city are the more integrated ones, and they tend to be public sector led. Transport for London is, we think, one of the world's most integrated and successful transport systems, and we have been, so for example, the electric scooters you're talking about, we don't have them in London yet. They've not been regulated for, because at the moment they don't necessarily fit into our transportation system. But we are keen to see new entrants to the market. We are keen to see a kind of mix of public-private. So I think that's fine. In terms of privatising it, I don't think we'll be doing that anytime soon in London. But I think the most important thing when it comes to transport in particular is to start to shift towards that mobility as a service style approach to transport, where you can get off a train, get onto another type of transport, get off that, get onto another type of transport using one payment method, one app, one approach. It's easier for tourists, it's easier for people who live there. That's the type of approach we're going for.
Okay, thank you. Kusura bakmayın, seçmeye çalışıyorum bir yandan.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to select questions so that we can ask to different people for equality.
People meet, talk, and as citizens we need. In this perspective, do you make any social impact assessment in your smart city projects? How will citizens be affected from smart cities? I think you have given partly these, especially you team, because your perspective is focused on human, not including technology, but
technology to understand human beings.
Yes, human beings. So,
well, briefly on that subject, and maybe to pick up on another point, that can Istanbul be a smart city, and the point that you made about quick wins. One of the fastest processes that can be undertaken is to map the movement patterns of a community. It can take 2 days. The community can do it with you. And at the end of it, you have a map. You can take it into a digital mapping system. And it becomes a record of fact about how a community is. And this is how we often begin. You never have an end to a smart city project. You never have a beginning either, because there's always some other process going on. And so when I'm working with a city, I often recommend, let's just start quickly to paint the picture of how people are moving today. Then when you've made change, to answer this question, you can go back, because one of the most powerful symbols of successful societal impact is to see people sitting and standing in public space, and simply to count the people in a park, on a street, who are not walking, they're just stopping and sitting and having a conversation, is a very powerful metric.
Thank you. I would like to ask you, Anne, if you don't mind, as an experienced politician, when you compare the past and now, do you prefer past, or is it better now?
That's a bit too general.
Yes.
But what I like about the present situation of smart cities is that it's not for some elite somewhere, whether it be philosophers or architects or whatever, developers, but that become more and more to and from the people. And that's why Tim's story makes even more clear how important it is that we use technology for people and not for a living or to have a clever study or whatsoever, but to make life better, indeed.
Okay. Mehmed Ali Bey.
Mehmed Ali, Jazeri robots. Are they a part of the smart city project? Maybe, yes, because Jazeri lived in 1180s. He was the chief engineer, and those robots, well, we employed the word robots for those machinery, but there's an artistic feature as well. There is a mechanical technology, and just like human beings together with human functions, of course partial. For example, there are some robots who serve beverages, but we are surprised by the following. For the first time, Jazeri, to surprise us, to tell a story, Jazeri brings together mechanisms, mechanics with human beings. So in the shape of a human being, we see a machine in 1180s. So to pave the way for the future, of course, those robots, those machines are important. When we look at the past with this perspective, we see that in the past as well, people were trying to improve the habitat in a very clever way. They were trying and they were exerting a tremendous effort to manage their habitat. Today we have more tools, more data, more opportunities, but we have to look at our cities with intelligence, with our minds.
I would say provocative question for you. Here you are. You can see in the screen.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned in presentation earlier, the Smart City project is very much a journey. It's not something that was started with Sadiq. It's something that's been going on for a long time. And as I said, smart city is just the fashionable term for what we're talking in terms of data and connectivity and citizens and the things that Tim mentioned at the end of his presentation as well. You know, look, we had Oyster card and contactless payments on the tube some 10, 15 years ago. So it's very much a journey that we're going on. I think where we currently are as a city is where a lot of this kind of movement had grown organically. What we're trying to do is put a strategy around it, lead it, encourage it, accelerate it a little bit more. But yeah, I think, you know, a city like London is always going to develop in that way, and I imagine a city like Istanbul will as well. And just to, on one of your questions you asked earlier to the person next to me about what they were like, London in the past was much worse than it is now. And I think there was a week in the 1950s where the smog was so bad you couldn't even see several meters ahead of you. So I think we should never get too rose-tinted about the past, and we should always celebrate where we are in terms of the development of our cities.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Berrin Hanım, belki hani son bir iki soru.
Berrin, last couple of questions. Would you like to answer this question, Berrin? Smart cities make cities an international market. Would there be any damage on the history, nature, or social life of cities because of this understanding? Thank you very much for the question. In all our studies, we try to emphasize this issue. Culture and art are the most important pillars for cities because they bring together people. In the definition of smart cities, we always try to focus on culture and art because without them, we can talk about transformation, but there should be something missing. So, yes, there might be, of course, some harm, and sometimes we can observe that harm. But if we can manage the transformation properly, then we can minimize those damages. That's why we exert efforts. Thank you. Can I add on this, please? Our mayors use the word brand, but they shouldn't use the word brand because cities are our habitat. It's not a product we are trying to sell out. Of course, tourism is important, but we should treat cities like home, not like a good or a product. Thank you very much. You are right, and I do agree. So, thank you very much for your participation, for your valuable contributions, for coming to Turkey, and I would like to wish you nice flights, and thank you very much for your attention, dear audience. Thank you.